What is going on, Pats Nation? You guys already know who it is. Patriots Global here, back with another video. And in this one, guys, I am super excited to say that we are here with your 2022 New England Patriots training camp recap. Now, of course, every day that is open to media, I will be recapping these videos for you guys, basically on the notes that the media gives us, which essentially is overall notes and then in-depth at each position notes. So as long as these videos do good, as long as you guys seem interested in them, I will recap every day. So make sure you guys comment below, hit that subscribe button, and of course, don't forget to leave a thumbs up so I know you guys are liking these. Now, to start this video off, I do want to say the official report that we got, the official notes we got from expert media members that were there today for day one of training camp, but I actually had a subscriber, a Patreon member that was there, someone who's part of the Patriots Global family that was there for training camp today. Now, your boy will be at training camp, but I'm looking more at next week. Unfortunately, I'm not able to be there today, but a loyal subscriber and Patreon member, like I told you guys about before, that was there today, actually took down some real excellent notes that he sent in our Patreon group chat. Of course, you want to join that Patreon group chat. Make sure you become a Patreon member, link in the description below. And I wanted to share some of his notes with you guys, but without further ado, let's hop into the official notes that we got. Now, let's start with the overall notes here, just some general notes. The guys that were not practicing today were James White, Andrew Stuber, Chasen Hines, David Andrews, Jonathan Jones, Miles Bryant, Jabril Peppers, and Jake Bailey. Now, that is a continuation here for Andrew Stuber and Chasen Hines, both of the rookie offensive linemen that were drafted just a couple of months ago back in April. They seem to both be dealing with some lingering issues here since being drafted. We haven't seen them in minicamp, OTAs, anything of the sort. So those are two guys that are likely going to be IR'd. Now, we had one player that was limited today. That was rookie running back Pierre Strachan. Now, again, guys, today was day one. No pads, no contact. It was overall just more of a continuation of minicamp, more specifically red zone drills. That's really what they did today, was just that continuation of red zone drills, which they were really banging out in minicamp. Now, a really interesting piece of information that we found out here for day one of training camp is that Bill Murray, the UDFA from a couple years ago, the defensive tackle, he's actually working with the offensive line now and not as an interior defensive lineman. That is definitely going to be a storyline to watch. Now, during all competitive drills, Matt Patricia spoke into a walkie-talkie to the quarterbacks, and then the quarterbacks walked into the huddle. Joe Judge kind of stood back with Bill Belichick and was kind of just looking at his play call sheet, and then Patricia is doing most of that offensive play calling. It looks to be that Matt Patricia is going to be the one calling these offensive plays. Now, overall, the Patriots offense definitely got the better of the Patriots defense today. Defense really didn't perform all that well. The defense did have to end up doing push-ups at the end of the day because of not performing up to par. Now, moving on to each position here. As for the quarterbacks, 11 on 11s. Mac Jones was 8 for 10. Brian Hoyer was 5 for 6 with an interception. And rookie quarterback Bailey Zappi didn't participate in 11 on 11s. Now, as for 7 on 7s, Mac Jones was 5 for 6. Hoyer was 1 for 2. And Bailey Zappi was 2 for 2. Overall, it was reported that today was a solid day for Mac Jones. He was accurate. He was just an overall quarterback. Like, there was nothing that stood out about Mac Jones. He wasn't really pushing the ball down the field, wasn't making any crazy spectacular plays, nothing flashy. It was just an average day for Mac Jones. Nothing bad, but nothing you're going to write home about. Now, as for rookie quarterback Bailey Zappi, he's still not really showing any flashes, not really showing that potential just yet, and that's not to worry at all. At the end of the day, he's your backup quarterback. He's a rookie quarterback. But you could just tell that he's still learning this playbook. He's still trying to be adapted, because it was reported that in red zone drills, he ended up throwing a ball to literally no one. He just threw it to an open space, expecting somebody to be there, and no one was in the vicinity. Now, moving on to running backs here, Ramondre Stevenson was the lead running back today in 7-on-7s. Ty Montgomery was active out of the backfield as a pass catcher. Now, this makes a lot of sense as James White, he's still dealing with that injury. It was reported that he's still dealing with discomfort from that injury, that season-ending injury he got a few weeks into the 2021 season. Some people saying that Pierre Strong could potentially be the replacement here for James White, but obviously he's limited, so Ty Montgomery is taking over those reps as the pass-catching back in the backfield. There was a point that Mac Jones found him in the back corner of the end zone for a touchdown at one point where he actually ended up beating Shaun Wade, who, from what we saw in today's practice, is the Patriots slot cornerback with Jonathan Jones being out. Moving on to wide receivers here, Devontae Parker hauled in back-to-back touchdowns from Mac Jones early on in red zone work. He beat both rookies, both Marcus and Jack Jones. Parker apparently got the crowd really fired up after that second one. He was really interacting with the crowd, which, hey, if you've ever been to Patriots training camp, let me tell you, there's very few and far between players that really do participate and interact with the crowd, essentially because you're not supposed to. So when you get those couple of guys that participate and get the crowd riled up, I mean, it's a great time. So overall, it definitely seems like Devontae Parker, from what we've seen so far, is really buying into the New England atmosphere. Now, later on, he caught another touchdown over Terrence Mitchell, in which Terrence Mitchell had really tight coverage. From what I also heard, Mac Jones just lofted that ball up, and Devontae Parker just went up and hauled that thing in. From what it was reported, they didn't think that Mac Jones thought Devontae Parker was going to be able to go up and grab the ball. So, looking like that 50-50 outside perimeter X receiver role is really fitting in so far for Devontae. Overall, they say that the player of the day was Devontae Parker. As for Kendrick Bourne, he had a pair of nice grabs in 7-on-7s. One rep, he actually took UDFA safety / special teamer Brendan Schooler to, air quote, school. Now, Devontae Parker might have been the player of the day, but Nelson Aguilar made the play of the day in the end zone where he high-pointed a ball over Malcolm Butler in the end zone. And then as for these receivers, rookie wide receiver, second-round pick Tyquan Thornton recorded back-to-back diving catches on throws from Brian Hoyer. He was able to beat, yet again, both defensive backs, both rookie defensive backs, Jack and Marcus Jones. Now, while Tyquan Thornton did show some flashes, it was reported that he doesn't look quite comfortable yet, and he looked a little sluggish, a little slow with his routes compared to these veteran receivers, which makes sense. Now, unfortunately here for minicamp standout Trey Nixon, his first day of training camp wasn't anything to write home about. He was very quiet. He had just one target that resulted in an interception, and he had to run a lap for it. So, pretty bad day for him. Wasn't anything to say about the tight ends. As for the offensive line, the first team offensive line was from left to right. Trent Brown, Cole Strains, James Ferentz at center with David Andrews being out. Michael Onwenu at right guard here, and then Isaiah Wynn still playing at right tackle. Now, obviously, with no pads and no contact, there's not a whole lot to say about the defensive line, but we did get a little bit. Josh Uche would have had a sack. Daniel Akwale, he also would have had a sack. Moving on to the linebackers here, again, not too much to say, but Raekwon McMillan was factored in a lot today with the starters. He is expected, as long as he can stay healthy, to be a big part of this Patriots defense and a starting linebacker to this core, with Dante Hightower, Jamie Collins, and Kyle Van Noy being out of the mix this year. Now, moving on to cornerbacks, interceptions, Jawan Williams would have had one, or did have one off of Brian Hoyer. Jalen Mills was able to get a pass breakup. The starting cornerbacks in early 7-on-7s were Jalen Mills and Terrence Mitchell on the perimeter. Shaun Wade was the slot receiver again, with Jonathan Jones being out. Terrence Mitchell today was very much factored in a lot with the starters. Now, from what we've seen so far this offseason, the Patriots are really using these guys as a rotation. The starting cornerbacks are not finalized. This is a true camp battle for who is going to play opposite of Jalen Mills. Now, as for Malcolm Butler, he had some good plays and he had some bad plays. The best way I can put this is that Malcolm Butler was Malcolm Butler. There was one red zone drill where he locked up Tyquan Thornton, which forced Mac Jones to scramble, but then there was another play where Malcolm Butler gave up a 50-yard touchdown to Nelson Aguilar. Again, Malcolm Butler was Malcolm Butler. From the notes I kind of put out here so far, you can tell that both of these rookie corners in Marcus Jones and Jack Jones were struggling big time today. We've heard a lot of positives about Jack Jones throughout minicamp and these OTAs, but for day one of training camp here, as things start to ramp up, Jack Jones not looking too sharp right now. Moving on to the safeties here, pass breakups, Joshua Bledsoe would have had 2, and Adrian Phillips also had another. Joshua Bledsoe also appeared to factor in quite a bit today, surprisingly quite a bit. He was around the ball a lot. If he can keep this up, he could be a potential rotational piece here defensively and on special teams. Speaking of special teams, punt returners today were Kendrick Bourne, Trey Nixon, Marcus Jones, Jack Jones, and Kyle Duggar, and Mac Jones served as a holder at one point while the other quarterbacks were throwing. Personally, don't love that. I don't know why you're having your starting quarterback being the holder. It seems like a potential storyline gone bad for no apparent reason. There's several other players you could have had do that. So, again, not really sure why they had Mac Jones doing that, but nonetheless, nothing to write home about there. Now, guys, like I mentioned earlier, I did have a subscriber and Patreon member there at training camp today who sent us his notes, his very, very good and in-depth notes from day one of training camp as he was present. So, Joseph Pastors, I believe I'm saying that right, bro. I'm sorry if I'm not. Shout out to you, bro. And here are a couple of notes that I did want to take away from your very in-depth notes. Now, he says that Hoyer's team was mostly focused in the beginning of practice, focusing on the running plays, while rookie quarterback Bailey Zappi was trying his hard counts to fool potential defenses. He also noted that he did notice a false start on Brian Hoyer's offensive line, but no one ended up having to run a lap for it. Now, Brian Hoyer is the second team quarterback, meaning that whatever it is was the second team offense. He also notes that early on in practice, Nelson Aguilar was being Nelson Aguilar, ended up dropping a pass, did not get a great reaction there from the crowd. Now, something I didn't hear any other reporter actually report on today that I did see in his notes was that there was one point where the offense and the defense were going against each other and one player went down, seemed like they were dealing with some type of injury, and he notes that that player was Jonnu Smith. Now, obviously, this isn't anything significant. If it was anything significant, we would have gotten genuine reports about it. So obviously, this is not anything to worry about, but still something to note that he did seem to get a little bit shaken up at one point. Now, from his notes, it sounded like the Patriots were also practicing a lot on blocking punts today, and from these notes, it sounds like Malcolm Butler was doing really good at that. Now, in his first tenure with the Patriots, there were multiple times that we saw Malcolm Butler coming in and contributing on special teams, so this makes a lot of sense, and he said at one point he actually heard a coach yell, and I quote, "That's how you block a punt." Now, a big storyline we've been hearing all offseason is Ramondre Stevenson taking that leap in his second year, and him even saying he doesn't want to be a one-dimensional running back. He wants to really craft himself to participate and contribute in every phase of the game. And it sounds like he's doing so, as he was definitely contributing in the passing game, which he really did show good flashes of in the 2021 season. He said there was a point where he noticed a really nice grab on the side of the end zone by running back Ramondre Stevenson from a Patriots assistant. He immediately caught another pass, this time by Mac Jones, and then again from Brian Hoyer. Something I really took away from these notes is that Mac Jones was primarily throwing here to these tight ends and running backs. That was a lot of the work. Now, this makes sense as for the tight ends because the Patriots are expected to highly utilize these tight ends for this upcoming season, especially with the emergence here of Jonnu Smith. Now, obviously, the Patriots have a pretty fair wide receiver core. It's not anything to really write home about. It's not one of the best in the NFL. But this is still a decent, a good wide receiver core, But I think what's going to put this team over the top is if they can get these tight ends going. And it seems like Bill Belichick, this Patriots coaching staff, completely agrees with that, as it really seems like they are trying to build these connections with the tight ends and definitely getting these tight ends involved with the new offensive scheme that they're inputting. Now, Joseph here also took some pretty good notes on Nick Folk and how he was doing at kicking. He said that he came out for field goal attempts from about the 35 to 40 yard line. He says that the first kick sailed through the uprights. It was good. The second kick was also good, right down the middle. The third attempt here by Nick Folk was just inside the left upright, ultimately being good. Attempt number 4 was also good. Attempt number 5 was just inside the left upright and was good. Attempt number 6 seemed a little bit far, but he said based off of how the crowd was reacting, it seemed like the kick was good. So overall, sounds like a good day here for Nick Folk. But that is going to be the recap here for today for New England Patriots day 1 of mandatory training camp. Like I said before, I will be covering you guys for all news involving the New England Patriots throughout practices, including practice recaps, winners and losers, injuries, trades, releases, signings, everything. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, leave that thumbs up button. And if you were at Patriots training camp today, go ahead and let me know in the comment section below if there's anything that you saw that I did not mention. But like always, I appreciate you guys for watching, and go Pats.
In Astroworld.